a statistician should know rudimentary knowledge, should have rudimentary knowledge about a variety of subjects, because statistics is applied everywhere. That's what it said. And I was really hooked. I said, no, this is I want to be able to do that. It is one of the few subjects which is in demand both in academia as well as in industry, geometry. So I think for the first time in my life, I kind of understood what does it mean to have fun in mathematics. So until then, like, mathematics is a live animal. It has its own way of doing things. Structures have its own. Once you build a structure, they do things, and you are watching, and you can manipulate it. So that is how I felt. So I remember getting excited about it. It was a long day, and I remember getting really excited about that whole idea, seeing a full thing, and I felt like this is what I want to do. I felt very excited. I will say that if you don't know what you want to pursue, until you find your passion, pursue mathematics, because whatever you learn will be useful in some way or the other.
Good afternoon to everyone from India, and afternoon, evening, morning to people from other countries. Welcome to this third session of Expert Talks organized by Raising a Mathematician Foundation. My name is Vinay Nair, and I'm the secretary of the foundation. So today we have a very special person, an eminent guest with us, Dr. Nagaraj Neerchal. Let me just take a few seconds to introduce him. Nagaraj ji is a statistician by his degree, and he is the Vice Chancellor for Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth, the Chinmaya University, which is a de novo university in India, and he has been acting as a Vice Chancellor since last 1 year. He passed out from Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata, and he went to US, went ahead to do his PhD, and then he was the director for the graduate program in statistics in University of Maryland. And there he was also the co-founder of the Interdisciplinary Consulting and Research in the Department of Mathematics and Statistics in University of Maryland. He has got a lot of accreditations to him. I'll not list down everything, but a few might be just worth mentioning. First is, of course, he has presented countless papers in different conferences. He has guided several PhD students and master's students. He has a lot of publications to his credit. 3 books especially. He is a recipient of various awards, the Kaufman Entrepreneurship Fellowship, and the Distinguished Achievement Award from the American Statistical Association. And he, apart from statistics, is a student of Vedanta. He loves Indian philosophy, which I guess he got exposed to when he was doing his 11th and 12th grade in Siddhavana Gurukula, where they take in students who are of high potential. It's a place in Karnataka, and he was born and brought up in a place called Kasaragod in the North Kerala, and now he's back to Kerala. He started his life, his young days from Kerala. He's back to Kerala in Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth, where he has started some amazing programs. And when we asked him for this expert talks, he readily agreed. So that's in short about Dr. Nagaraj Neerchal. Just a small fun fact about him, I thought maybe I can just share. So generally we talk about work-life balance and how do you balance your life and work. And from my interactions with Nagaraj ji, what I have seen is his life itself is work. So he works for most times of the day, and that is what is his life mostly all about. So Nagaraj ji, welcome to this talk, and over to you. It would be great if you can just start, share maybe some parts of your journey and how it has been so far, and then we can take it up from there.
Definitely. Thank you. This is such a privilege, Vinay. Thank you very much for having me. And I know that how much these people mean to you. And I know that, your passion and everything. I'm such a big fan of your passion. And the very fact that you're giving me access to this group, it is a privilege to me. Okay, so I really, really appreciate it. I know that you don't, it's not just, I'm not here because I'm famous or I'm good or whatever. I think that it's because, you love me, I think. And so I appreciate this opportunity. I know that this is not everybody is not going to be able to get access to this group. I know you love them so much. So I appreciate that. So I think, as we discussed, I think it might be useful to talk about a little bit about career choices in statistics, but I am going to just take an autobiographical approach to this. So within 5-10 minutes or so, I will talk, and then maybe we can jump into questions. Meanwhile, if anybody thinks of a question, just jump in. And so, I know that 45-50 people have already signed up. If just write what you are really expecting out of this session, so that we can later on review and see whether we have answered all the questions that you had in your mind or not. Because hopefully many of those questions will come up. Otherwise, right now itself, I think Vinay or whoever is monitoring the chat box can see and incorporate those questions into the question and answers.
Sure.
So make it interactive to some extent. So not fully, but so periodically I might ask you some questions and request you to write the answers into the chat box. So to that extent, it will be interactive, definitely. So, where do I begin? I think that Vinay mentioned Siddhavana Gurukula. I think it's a very good place to start. How did I end up in Siddhavana Gurukula? I think this, I thought I'll mention this to you because many of you might resonate with this possibility. When I was growing up, and I think probably it has not changed that much, the pressure for every reasonably good student to be in either medicine or engineering. So if you're a good student, you're recognized as a good student, and usually good student is the one who does well in math and science. This is how it really is defined at that time. I am pretty sure that it has not changed that much. If you're getting 100 in math, it is smart. This is how it is, which is not necessarily 100% true, as we all know. So if you're and I was a decent student, and that you have to be medicine or engineering. But for me, the downside of going for medicine was that you had to learn biology to be in medicine. I was not at all getting my, my intuition was not working in biology at all. And, and I kind of like math. And I think I want to mention this one particular thing. During my 8th grade, we had a new teacher in high school. I went to a high school in Nirchal, Mahajana Samskrita College High School, MSCHS. I went to MSCHS and 8th grade. We had a new teacher. His name is Kulamarwa Keshav Krishna, and he is active in Facebook. I don't know whether he's watching today or not. And I think he was that teacher. He had just finished his B.Ed and he came, and he started the class by saying, I have a riddle for you. And so he talked about a riddle and said, okay, what is the riddle? And he said it in English. And remember, this is a Kannada medium school, but he said this riddle in English. I remember very clearly. He said, oh, he lies between two mats. His degree is ICS. And who is he? This was the riddle. And of course, you guys in this group loves the riddles, right? So he is between two mats and ICS, he ends with ICS. So the answer is mathematics, and he wrote it down on the board, explained this and everything. And so that is how the class started. And he taught geometry. So I think for the first time in my life, I kind of understood what does it mean to have fun in mathematics. So until then, this problem solving, all the things that you are so fortunate to get exposed by being with Vinayji, I was not exposed to this. I didn't understand all this. See, I was from a village, and Nirchal was a village, and I didn't have exposure to the kind of thing you're exposed to. But this teacher kind of showed us how to have fun. He was incredibly popular by everybody, whether somebody liked math or not. Everybody liked him very much, and he talked about math. He kind of showed us how to have fun with math. Math is fun. And so I do remember very clearly that you talked about geometry, and I remember talking about a rider that, if you have two supplementary angles, does everybody know what a supplementary angles are? Do you know? Since this is a fun crowd, so everybody knows supplementary angles. They add up to what? Please put it in the chat box. There are two angles that are supplementary. They add up to how many degrees? Let me see. Good. That's enough. Just to get you warmed up. But and when a straight line, another straight line comes and meets, two angles are formed and they become supplementary, right? Because there's a straight line, another line comes and joins like this, and the two angles formed, they add up to 180 degrees, because total angle on one side of a line is a 180, right? And I remember the first rider that I remember proving, I think it was in an exam, I feel, that if you bisect the two supplementary angles and you add the bisected angles, the total has to be 90 degrees, right? This was the first problem I remember doing actually in geometry. And so I remember thinking that, from the fact that supplementary angles add up to 180, the bisected add. So I remember seeing that that is an implication. It is not concurrence. All those things I didn't know the names, but I remember seeing that. It's very interesting. It's like, for people who are into biology, it is like handling a live animal, not dead animal. Like mathematics is a live animal. It has its own way of doing things. Structures have its own. Once you build a structure, they do things, and you are watching, and you can manipulate it. So that is how I felt. So I remember getting excited about it. So after high school, I wanted to get out of biology, and Siddhavana Gurukula was the hostel, free hostel, for a college located in Ujjire called SDM College, and they offered statistics. So I want in place of biology. So I could get physics, chemistry, math, and statistics instead of physics, chemistry, math, and biology. So I said, no, I somehow need to get into this college, because otherwise I'll be banished to learning biology in 2 years and I would do terrible and so on. So I ended up in Siddhavana Gurukula. That opened up my mind in so many different ways. I will, end up spending too much time spending this. But in my second PUC, I had one faculty who was teaching us statistics a little bit more serious way. How many people know about binomial distribution? Everybody knows binomial? Yes? Binomial. Yes? Yes? I need a few more yeses before I go forward. Anybody who has not heard about binomial? Anybody? You guys are too smart, I know that. How about Poisson? Poisson, P-O-I-S-S-O-N. My pronunciation may not be perfect, or you may not be familiar with it. Poisson, anybody knows Poisson distribution? Can someone tell me what is the main difference between binomial and Poisson? What is the main difference between the two distributions? What is one thing that you will tell somebody? Binomial is, the range is finite, right? It goes from, say, 10 trials, maximum 10 successes. Whereas Poisson is like 0, 1, 2, 3, like that, up to infinity. Its range is infinity, right? All the way, 0 and all the non-negative integers. Poisson, and is a very well-known. Poisson distribution is actually a well-known and widely used distribution even today for modeling events, right? Events such as accidents, number of accidents in a particular street corner, or number of telephone calls arriving at a exchange between a particular given hour, like that. So Poisson distribution is very, it's even today is very highly useful. And the teacher actually took accidents, took some data, right? Took some data and started with explaining what the data is, right? Is again number of days with the accidents, like number of days with accidents, right? Given month, how many months, like that. And so he actually fit a Poisson distribution to it and used the distribution to predict the probability and compare the expected frequency with the observed frequency, and took a conclusion saying, yeah, this model fits, this model can be used, like that. So it was a full, he just laid out the whole thing, starting from the problem statement in the real world scenario, saying that we want to be able to say make some probability statements about the number of accidents, number of days with certain number of accidents, and going all the way through the mathematics, through the derivation, and to the end point. And it must have taken at least 1 or 2 lectures to finish it. It was a long day, and I remember getting really excited about that whole idea, saying, full thing, and I felt like this is what I want to do. I felt very excited. So then I learned about ISI, Indian Statistical Institute. Anybody knows who founded ISI? Who is the founder of ISI? Who founded ISI, Indian Statistical Institute, not standards? Indian Statistical Institute. Anybody? Anybody knows the significance of the date June 29th? June 29th? Does anybody know when is National Statistics Day celebrated? What day is National Statistics Day? Now that I said June 29th, National Statistics Day, right? In the June 29th is the birthday of Prashanta Chandra Mahalanobis, PCM for short. He is the founder of ISI, okay? And he came up with this, he and his protege C.R. Rao, who is 100 this year, by the way. Recently, we celebrated his 100th birthday. Together, they formulated this program, this undergraduate program. Thank you, Nikhil. Yes, Viraj, good. Very good. So, so the people with the knowledge of PCM, they came up with this program, and I sent I requested a prospectus, and the prospectus came back saying that a statistician should know rudimentary knowledge, should have rudimentary knowledge about a variety of subjects, because statistics is applied everywhere. That's what it said. And I was really hooked. I said, no, this is I want to be able to do that. And so I ended up in ISI, luckily. And so, ISI is the best place to train as a statistician and so on. Okay. And I went to Iowa State to do my PhD in statistics. And so what happens for a statistician at the end of a PhD or a master's or whatever, right? You decide whether you want to be in academia or whether you want to be in industry. It is one of the few subjects which is in demand both in academia as well as in industry. If you're an engineer, it is very unlikely that you'll be in academia unless you go get a master's and a PhD. But if you are a master's in statistics, that's enough. You will actually be in academic environment. You will be required to teach and so on. Not only that, what I have noticed is that several students work with me and go on and get a job in industry. Even the students who end up in industry, they end up being the trainers a lot. So they end up teaching a lot, because whenever there is something new, some new software, new applications, and so on, and so they just basically be the one to go and say, okay, teach us this, teach us that. This is what happens. Okay. So statistics is one of those places where you have a lot of options in terms of what you want to do after graduation. Lot of options. Just to give you a sampler of the type of things that the statisticians are asked to do these days. How many people have heard about data science? Data science? What is data science? So there was some question about careers. Data science, right? Yes, data science. What is data science? Well, science of data, right? So we'll maybe talk a little bit more about it later on. Clinical trials. How many people have heard about clinical trials? Clinical trials. So when a new medicine is medicine comes to invented by scientists, before the medicine can be marketed, there are some requirements. So you need to show that the medicine works. So the company, the drug company, is required to run what is called a large-scale clinical trials. That means the medicine should be, administered to a large number of people, thousands usually, and record how many people actually got benefit out of it, was there any side effects, etc. So this has to be done, and it is a statistical exercise, and statisticians are needed to run these clinical trials. So this is one. So pharmaceutical industry is actually one of the largest employers of statisticians. Okay. And so statisticians are also needed in industry for quality control. Statistical quality control it is called, right? And so manufacturing industry, in fact, where the factories are making small parts, right? And they have some certain specifications. So a particular nut or something, a small part of a telephone, mobile phone, etc. They have some specifications, and you want to make sure that most of them, or 99% of them, are within specification. And how do we make sure that how many units should you sample and decide how to, and how many of them should be within the acceptable limit, in order to ensure that the entire population is within control, it's under control. So these kind of question, and statisticians are employed by industry also. Now, in today's in the world, another very prominent employer of statistician is the insurance industry. So insurance industry needs to decide what the premium for insurance is, right? So let us say they insure 100 people. They know that all of them are not going to live beyond certain age, right? All this is coming from past data. That is what determines what the insurance rate or the premium should be. Health insurance in India is an upcoming industry, health insurance, because in the Western countries, health insurance has been around for a while. Here, insurance is actually new. Health insurance is new because people are insuring themselves, essentially, right? Paying for it themselves or go to the government hospital. But now, the insurance is available for people can buy insurance through their work and so on, right? So a particular company might have 200 employees, and they may want to give a benefit to their employees, right? Now, depending on how healthy they are, what is the age distribution and so on, so you need a statistician to look at it and say that, what is the overall risk level, and determine one constant premium rate for the entire set of employees, right? Such people are called actuaries, right? But it is actually a field in statistics. Statisticians are mathematicians and statisticians. So whenever I say statisticians, you can substitute mathematicians who have that kind of applied bent of mind, okay? So they will be, they will find that to be a very interesting careers. So let me just stop there, and I think that I've gone on for about 15 minutes now. I think around 15 minutes. So I think, or did I go longer?
A little longer, but that's that was not a problem at all.
Okay, so I think I'm going to stop and maybe take some questions, perhaps, or I think any of these topics that I touched upon, if you want me to revisit and say more, so let me stop there. So I want to say one other thing, and this is a advertisement for statistics, being a statistician. The fact that I'm here today as the Vice Chancellor for a university like Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth has everything to do with my attitude as a statistician, okay, and my training. Because Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth is a university. It is just a normal university, like from looking outside. But we have a very key vision. We want to actually incorporate Indian knowledge tradition in all the subjects that we teach. So we teach BBA, BCom, BA in Sanskrita, and BSc Honors in Applied Psychology, and newly this year, BA, BEd in English, and BSc, BEd in Mathematics, and also introducing this year BE Vocational Studies in Tourism, and Data Analytics, and Renewable Energy Management, right? All these things. But we want to incorporate Indian knowledge system and Indian knowledge tradition. What does that mean? This is the ancient knowledge that is there in Vedas, Upavedas, and all those what we consider ancient knowledge base. There are a lot of things in there. We know it was a vibrant civilization at one time, so they must have had a lot of knowledge. For example, the famous example they give some years ago, Brihadishwara temple was built. Building a temple like that went on, it took 12 plus years to build a temple. It requires a system. You cannot build a temple like that unless thousands of workers are working every day. That means you have to feed thousands of people every day without fail, 3 meals a day. That means even there's in 12 years, if you're a time series person, I will say that there must be some day out of 12 years, there has to be 2 dry periods, 2 years in which the rain is low. You have to prepare for that ahead of time. So a lot of planning is necessary. So a lot of statistical work must have taken place. A lot of engineering innovations had to be made and so on. So we have no idea how they did it. And so this is something that we want to learn and see if there is anything useful that we can actually contribute to the current world. So I want to just stop there. And that is what really makes me, as a statistician, I was exposed to this kind of a wide variety of things. So when someone came to me and said that, hey, do you want to really look at this university that is doing Indian knowledge system and Indian knowledge tradition? And because of my mission, Chinmaya mission exposure, I was somewhat exposed to it. And immediately I wanted to know what is the connection. Is there a statistical connection between statistics and this? And it turns out that you need clinical trials for yoga research. And this is not, and it is very challenging for a variety of reasons. And I think that we can talk about it another hour on this. Dynamic treatment regime, because Ayurveda does not use the specific dosage. It uses what is called dynamic treatment regime. So, and statisticians are needed, and sophisticated methods are needed for handling such data. So, I'll stop, and I see one question here. Can you give the best course after 12 and can help to a chance of problem? Okay, so this is actually one thing that is worth the talking. So, you are very lucky because you're all interested in mathematics and good in mathematics. You're all very lucky. Those majority of the people here are of that type. Because in this group, I will say that if you don't know what you want to pursue, until you find your passion, pursue mathematics. Because whatever you learn will be useful in some way or the other. Because I think that at the end, as human beings, we need to contribute to the society. Proving theorems is fun, but if the theorems actually open up new avenues for the human beings, or if it cures cancer, or if it alleviates poverty, cures COVID, now all of a sudden you have a different, a certain enhanced meaning for your work. So what happens for a lot of people is they take a long time to find their passion, right? So if you eventually you might find that subject like psychology or sociology might be more interesting to you. You may want to do social work, but if you have been pursuing quantitative science until then, you will be one of the few people in sociology who will actually be able to deal with data, organize, and so on. So you will become very useful to everybody there, in the process also successful. So that is why I think that, so I don't need to tell you that usually I need to convince people to pursue mathematics using this argument. But you are already in good shape, and continue to do what you're doing until you find the passion. I am confident that what you're learning, the problem solving skills you're learning, the tools you're learning, programming tools, coding tools, presentation skills, and so on, are going to be so useful no matter which subject you eventually choose as your calling. So I as I think Vinayji mentioned, that I spent almost 30 some years in US. In US, when you go to a college, you have to choose a major. Once you choose a major, they have something called CBCS, credit-based, choice-based credit system. So then you choose courses here and there, right? And so there are some set courses you have to take, some choices. So this system is called CBCS, okay? And what happens is that some students don't want to choose a major early, they want to choose a major later. And they become undeclared major. They are major undeclared, they become a separate category. And I usually tell everybody that the best undeclared major is math, right? That means that you are not sure what you want to do, take as much math as you can handle. Not more than what you can handle, just as much as you can, and until you find your passion. If math is your passion, then you're in good shape. If something else is your passion, you can switch. So so there was a question about data science. I think that, so one thing that you need to remember, my take on data science is that it is a confluence of mathematics, statistics, and computer science. So data science to me is a confluence of these three things, and add a lot of common sense. Okay, you need a lot of common sense to be a good data scientist. So mathematics, because algorithms and things like that reside in mathematics. Data by nature is uncertain. So you need to know how to quantify uncertainty, how to describe uncertainty, how to model uncertainty, and so on. These things you learn in statistics. Whatever you come up with, you need to implement. You need to be able to code. You need to be able to handle certain degree of computer science. You need to have idea about how data is stored, etc., etc. So you need to have a knowledge of computer science also. So if you want to be a data scientist, you may want to focus on these three subjects: mathematics, statistics, and computer science. Okay, so I would say computing or computer science, there's some difference in it, but you can debate that if you have a specific question. But these are the three things. So those of you are thinking about guidance, how do I become a data scientist? Pursue these three topics. So if you are in a system where you can choose courses, generally take these courses: math, stat, and computer science. In mathematics, generally geared towards things like matrix algebra, right? Matrices. This is a very, very important topic from the point of view of data science. Like group theory and all, maybe less so. They are also useful, but less so. So you may, in mathematics, you may want to move towards topics like matrix algebra, and applied math, things to do with solving differential equations and things like that. Some more applied topics, then be more useful.
Okay, Nagaraj, if I may just jump in. Now you have shared so many things. So let me just try to quickly summarize and share a few more questions which have come to me, along with some other questions which I had in mind. So you shared about your journey, which was very inspiring. You came from you didn't come from the typical city background kind of thing, and then you got exposed to statistics by thanks to a wonderful teacher, and then you went to ISI, and then so on and so forth. So you also said that stats is all over the place, right? You become a statistician. It's like you get an entry to many fields, right? So my question over here is, um, there might be some students who felt the calling like you did, that I should be pursuing statistics. There might be some students who feel that, okay, I like stats, but there are so many other things which I really like. So I would want to pursue stats, but not at the cost of what I like. Maybe I would want to carry it along with, like you said, psychology, or so many other topics. So what would you recommend to students who, of course, in their university, if they have an option to do a minor in statistics or something like that, that's excellent. But let's say that they don't have that kind of option. Then what do you suggest? I mean, what would be your recommendations on how students can pursue statistics along the way if they cannot major in that, and can they still pursue, like some of them were asking, data science and so on. So can you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that the new recently released national education policy talks a lot about more choices for students, right? That is exactly why it highlights the choice-based credit system. So the universities in the long run in India will become a place where a student can go, start taking courses in whatever their subject is, psychology, sociology, engineering, medicine, or whatever. At the same time, they can also take courses in other subjects. These kind of choices will be opened up. In CVV, Chinmay Vishwavidyapith, we are already operating under that thing. So there is no restriction. You can be you can be majoring in psychology, but you can take any course. Essentially, there is no restriction as long as you finish the required courses in psychology during the 3 years. That is sufficient. In addition to that, you can take as many courses as possible. There is no restriction. So this is and so in a true sense, the choice-based credit system. Now, what I would say is that you can also go the other way around. So one of you might say, okay, I want to start taking psychology courses. But if the choice is available to you, you take the statistics course on the side. Now, in what I'm noticing here, especially COVID has brought many of these courses up to like higher profile. There are a lot of online courses available in statistics, and statistics especially. Data science, there are so many courses. These portals like Coursera and many similar courses, some of them are free. Courses are available so that you can actually train yourself in these topics. So the good thing about statistics or data science is that it is less likely that somebody is going to look at your credentials per se. When you are interviewing, you just say that, no, I know these things. I know Python. I may not have taken a course in Python, but I know Python. So you somehow make it clear to the person who is interviewing you that, I know Python. Here is a project, I did it. And talk about that project. Go there with a presentation. And, so you have to market yourself saying that, no, I know this data. I know how to handle data. I did this. And they might ask you to do it. Okay, show it to me in front. If you tell me that you know how to do something, I will not just accept you on face value. I'll just say that, okay, come on Zoom and show me. Let's share screen and tell me how you're doing. That's just the way you're moving the mouse. I will know that you're familiar with it, right? So experienced people can do that. So you can actually get a job as a data scientist, even though you don't have a defined credential in data science. That is where the industry is moving. It's going to be less about the degree or certificate that you're getting from your district. So, amazingly enough, how many of the electrical engineers are basically running IT companies, right? One already, right? A mechanical engineer who runs an IT company. Yeah? Anybody knows such a person? No? from Manipal Institute of Technology. Another hint you need? Huh? Hello? Okay, so you know, right? So this is credentials as such make less and less important. That is all the more important, you know, in this crowd, I can say, because math, math crowd, that is what really makes mathematics very interesting, because you are learning math, so that means you have a skill that is not so common, right? Not so common, actually. You know, you're fortunate to have that kind of skill. And then you add to that other ability to learn other things. So this actually comes to some point that I wanted to mention, that is one skill you need to learn. You need to learn this skill, and you need to showcase this skill. You know, you need to maintain, sharpen. This is one skill. What is it that you need to learn in school that is going to help you forever, right? Help you forever, right? That is the skill of learning itself, right? You go and it's like, you know, difference between learning the multiplication table versus how to learn how to multiply. If I know how to multiply, I can construct the multiplication table. I don't need to memorize it at all, right? So learning is like that. You know how to learn. And how do you know how to learn? How do you learn how to learn? By practicing learning. That means you have to learn new things. So that is one thing I would say. When you go to college, pick up things that you don't know before. For example, when you come to Chinmaya Vishwavidyapith, you have to learn Sanskrita to some extent, right? You don't need to be able to speak in Sanskrita fluently, but you need to learn Sanskrita, even if you're not exposed to it in the beginning, before you come here. That is a new thing for most people. So that's a very, very good place to practice your learning. So in CVV, we kind of focus on this learn to learn. So throw things at you that you have not seen before. And that is the best way to sharpen your learning cells. For example, you know, how do you keep your math skills sharp? By solving problems that you have not seen before. There is no point in doing the same problem again and again. That is called memorizing for the exam. No. You know, in fact, you know, when I joke with my students when I teach, I say, I give them a problem. I say, do you know how to do this problem? And they'll all say, no. I say, no, you should be very happy to say no. If you don't know how to do this problem, now you have something you're going to learn, right? So it's a good news. When you don't know something that I'm talking, it's a good news. If you know, whatever I'm saying right now, which you already know, I'm wasting your time, right? If I say something that you don't know, now you are learning. So like that, so you need to really focus on that learning. You need to know how your mind learns. Everybody's mind learns differently. And I mentioned this to our students here, that, you know, during the 3 years of undergraduate, you focus on when you work best. Do you learn best in the morning, or do you learn best in the night? Right? That way, when you go to work, your boss gives you something new to learn, new to do. You know for sure that you need to keep the morning free because you're a morning person. You don't want to get yourself some other assignment saying I have to go this and that. No, you have to keep your morning free because, you know, I have to do something new. I need to learn something. So I have to keep my mornings free because I'm a morning person. That is what you need to learn. You have to learn that thing. How, you know, your learning skills. What is the best way? Do you learn by listening, or do you learn by hearing? Reading, or do you learn by watching? Like that, you need to know that. If you are a person who learns by watching, as soon as someone gives me a task, I just go up and see now, are there videos on this? And I quickly pass through the videos and pick up 1 or 2 good videos, and then I'm going to just watch that only, right? And if I'm the person who I need to actually talk to somebody, I just call Vinayji and say, Vinayji, I don't know this. Can you please talk to me about it, right? Like that, I know so that is something, you know, this is, and only way to do that is to throw yourself things that is new to you. So Sanskrit is a good example, and IKS in India unfortunately is new. And so when you come here, you will actually get back to your basics and say, okay, how do you learn this? Because by 12th grade itself, you have forgotten how you learned some things. Ask yourself, when did you learn to multiply? How you learned to multiply? Long multiplication, long division, square root algorithm. How did you learn it? Do you remember how you did it? How you learned it? And how did you kind of make sure that you know how to do it? Many of us have forgotten it. I have, of course, I have an excuse. I'm old, right? But and we need to know and keep that fresh. Sundar Pichai, good job. Good job, Aparna.
Thank you, Nagaraj. I'll just jump in here to tell the participants that if you directly like to ask any questions, you can use the raise hand option. In fact, that is one of the reasons why we have the expert talks on Zoom, so that you get a direct opportunity to interact with the speaker. So until some hand comes up, I have another question, Nagaraj. You are talking about the programs that CVV offers, Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth offers, and that you are following the choice-based credit system, where you can have different combination of subjects, right? So my question over there is, let's say that somebody is interested in mathematics. Okay, they want to pursue a degree in mathematics. How do they fit in, or what kind of students should really come to CVV? I mean, is it cut out for everybody, or you're looking for some kind of traits in students who might benefit more if they come to CVV?
Well, I think that CVV has certain requirements, right? If you be in our math program, we have a BSc B.Ed math program, 4-year integrated program, one of its kind, and exactly what is prescribed in NEP as the requirement for being a teacher. By 2030, it will be implemented, and we already have the program. And so the requirement will be, you have to have a science stream student in PUC. You have to have math during your PUC. Now, but because of this flexibility issue, a lot of our faculty are very, open to somebody who is, if they can pass one of our, diagnostic tests, they may be allowed to come to BSc B.Ed math, because it is a single subject. The main subject that is taught is math only. No physics, no chemistry that is being taught. So it is a focused math program. It talks about math and teaching of math. Now, whether you are going to become a teacher or not, knowing how to teach math is a very important skill. This is actually one of the things that I think I wish I had learned when I was young. Because otherwise, you say B.Ed, oh, I don't want to be a teacher. That's not a very attractive career option for most smart people, right? This is how we think. But teaching of math is how you learn math better, right? I ask myself, how do I teach this to people? And then I look at all options, how do I, I may have to teach people who are smarter than me, or I may have to teach people who are less, proficient in mathematics than me. So how do I, so I asked that question, how do I present it? In the process, I learned that topic more, and this is that's a reality. So anyway, so we can actually admit those people. So this kind of flexibility is is going to be there for most universities in the future, I think, and CVV are already practicing it. For example, all our master's programs, we have master's and PhD. The requirement is like we have a MSc psychology, MSc applied psychology, but you can get a BCom degree and come there. And there will be some bridge courses you have to do before you get in. But BBA, BCom students can also enter our applied psychology program. We have a public policy and governance master's program, and undergraduate could be any. You can be a BA in Sanskrit and go and do, come and do public policy and governance and so on. So this is the flexibility that we are talking about. And there will be some choices. The choice-based credit system means this kind of a background person will do these courses. This another background will do another course like that.
Thank you, Nagaraj. There is Adityan who has raised his hand, so I'll just unmute Adityan.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So, suppose I'm a student who's interested in math. So, how do I figure out if math is the right thing for me to do, or statistics is the right thing for me to do, given that I'm interested in math?
So, Aditya, you are in CMI right now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this question you are asking on behalf of people who have not made that move. You're talking about somebody in PUC first or second year, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. See, one thing I think is worth the talking, and again, you are all Vineji students, so you probably already know.
Sorry, Nagaraj, not all of them. Some of them are, and some of them are. Yeah.
So there is a difference between what we think of as math in our high school and math that is really math. Okay? If you want to pursue math as a career, you should be very comfortable with ideas like proofs, geometry, and things like that. Just being able to do calculus or even algebra is not sufficient. Because later on things will become more about logic and reasoning and so on, and in a very abstract context. So if you're comfortable with a certain level of abstraction, and that kind of an abstraction is very enjoyable to you, then you want to pursue mathematics as a career, like do a BSc, MSc, and PhD in math. So on the other hand, if you are more comfortable with calculus, you feel very comfortable, the matrices you feel very comfortable, and you are capable of doing a certain level of algebra on your own, etc., then statistics is not a bad option for you at all, because it turns out that for applied statistics, it does not require that much of abstract math. Okay? To be a researcher and to do a PhD and everything in statistics, you will require math, a lot more math. You will require analysis. But for being an applied statistician, it does not require a lot of abstract math. So if you are comfortable with math, right, what we generally say, okay, he's good in math, right? This is what, when parents starting, he's good in math. Don't tell that's in front of him, but he's good in math. That is a person who might consider a career in statistics. How do you, I think, did you ask this question, Aditya, how do you find out whether it is for me or not? I want to kind of put a plug in for Vinayji's program, as well as a new program that we have come up with in CVV. If you go to cvv.ac.in and search this word Preksha, 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 you will see that we have come up with a program for you to taste what college is like. Okay, taste what college is like, and so in that course, you will, if you come to a program like that, then that will actually even let you go and sit in a classroom of college classroom, what it looks like, and so on. So you may want to try out programs like that. I'm sure there are similar programs elsewhere also, maybe not, but so you may want to go and attend a program like that. Now, many of the camps, that Epsilon Math camp that Vinayji had announced earlier, but he couldn't do it because in COVID. That is the kind of place where you will see what abstract problem solving is all about, and and then you get exposure to that without much risk. And if it is something that you like, you feel comfortable in, and you want to be good at, then you may want to pursue a career accordingly. So I would probably say also that talk to people who are around you. Some uncle, aunt, or somebody else, and some person who has a career, who is pursuing career. It doesn't have to be any career that sounds like interesting to do. Go and spend a day with them. Say that I really am interested in doing what you're doing, but can I spend one day with you? So I want to know what a statistician does on a typical day. As another thing, I promise that I will talk about it. What does a statistician do? The statistician, again, I am a statistician, right? It's like being a doctor in a clinic, right? People come to you with problems. Somebody will come and say that, what, I want to do COVID testing in my campus, right? And but I don't have money to run tests for everybody. But I want to estimate what is the percentage of positive cases in my in my college. Give me a sampling plan, right? So there are faculty, students, staff, and so on. Some people come to the campus every day. Some people come once a week, like that. The various different levels of exposure, right? So depending on the level of exposure, you can group the people into several groups, and you can develop a sampling design, right? And this is what a statistician does. Okay, you sample so many faculty, so many students, so many staff, and you test to them, and the resulting positive rate is about 4%, plus or minus some 1%. That is a statistician's statement, right? 4% plus or minus 1%, like that. So, and if you see in the process what he does or she does, then you say, oh, this is the kind of day I want to have. Right? You know what a doctor does, right? Cures people, and a statistician cures industry, cures problems, cures like that. So, and that is a kind of, you need to enjoy that interaction also. If you're not a people person, being an applied statistician is not so easy, because people will come to you with a lot of crying story only. They say, oh, I lost so much money. I've been building this machine. I brought this machine from Japan, but it is not producing good parts for me. And it's all getting rejected by the customer. What do I do?
I think that's a very, very good suggestion, Nagaraji, that you gave. You spend some time with an expert. It's like like a miniature form of intern. Being like an intern. Yeah. Okay, we have a couple of.
Can I suggest one thing on this one?
Sure.
This is where somebody like Vinay ji or me could be a useful contact. You send an email saying that, I want to know what this particular career is like. Then they may be, I'm not saying they will be, because it all depends on what the situation is, able to put you in touch with somebody, at least correspond with them, and get a feel for what that particular thing like that. Even you may say that I know everything about teaching. I say that you don't. In today's world, it may be worthwhile for you to go to an elementary school, or even for that matter, say someone who teaches LKG or UKG, go and spend a day with them. How challenging their day is. What you're looking for in life is a challenge, and at the end of the day, you want to have a sense of accomplishment. That is really what every one of us is looking for. Okay, and you'll see that, and you say, this is a lot of fun. Like that, you will see. Fun means, fun, hard work and rewarding, and it has changed a lot. Every there is a technology being used in every field. So if you're into technology, you're going to get a lot of satisfaction by in very different careers. You are very, very fortunate, I should say. I wish that I was your age now. So jump into this tremendous set of possibilities.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we are almost about time, but there are a couple of hands more. So what I'll do, Nagaraji, is I'll just unmute Vidya and Aparna, who have raised their hands. And okay, looks like there's only Aparna, and allow her to ask the question. And then I have a final question, and then maybe we can take a pause. Aparna, go ahead, please.
Hello, sir. How are you doing?
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. So the question is regarding the data science only. So I want to know how exactly the future of data science.
Future?
Yes, sorry, we are in the beginning, but I would like to know.
I think it may not be an exaggeration to say,
Mm-hmm.
instead of asking, does data science have a future? It may be better to ask, is there a future without data science? That is how important data science is going to be.
Okay.
Because what is going to happen? One thing certain, population of the world is increasing, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
But what is one thing, another thing that is equally certain? The resources are constant, correct?
True.
When the earth was formed, there was a certain amount of iron ore that was formed. That is it. No more iron ore has formed. Do you know that every drop of water that exists today in one form or the other existed when the dinosaurs were roaming? So you're drinking water that went through the dinosaur, by the way. Remember. Sorry, right?
Nice. Good to know.
Resources are constant.
Yeah.
People are increasing. So what do we need to do? We need to have a more efficient usage of resources. Where do you think such a problem is solved? Optimization. Where is that problem solved? It is in mathematics and data science, because I collect data, assess the situation, find a better way of using. How do I get better transportation? Of course, there is science is involved, right? No, I think I cannot imagine a future without data science. That is how important it has become. And in the last 10 years alone, tremendous progress has been made. And more and more tools are being made available to larger and larger groups of people. Okay. And so that means that there has to be people to create newer and newer tools to keep the supply going. Right. So no, I think so there is future in data science, and in fact there is no future without data science. That is how I would say.
Thank you so much. So another question is like how to gain the domain knowledge.
How to gain domain knowledge? Okay,
Yeah.
so this is actually you should be a statistician, Aparna.
Yes, you are the inspiration for me to be in statistics.
Anyone who asks me this question, I would say be a statistician, because see, look, I told you I ran away from biology, right?
Correct.
Remember?
Yes.
But you know how many collaborative projects I have done with biology? Quite a few, right? So one thing you learn as a statistician is to learn what you need to learn about the project so that you can be effective, collaborative. So I will not be able to explain the entire science of the projects that I have been part of. I will not be able to explain, but I will sit down and listen and ask a lot of questions and get that part of the domain knowledge that is relevant for the application of statistics. Right? And when I'm doing a project with somebody, I spend a lot of time with them. So I was actually fortunate to get involved in a project back in UMBC, my home campus, UMBC, and about detecting lameness in cows. Lameness is a pain, foot. Cows get certain diseases in their feet and they cannot walk properly. And when they are lame, they're not well, they don't eat well, and they don't give a proper amount of milk. Okay, so it's very important for us to detect the lameness early, treat them. So I got involved, right? And it's an engineering problem. The cows are made to walk on a platform. It is connected to a computer. The forces are measured based on the forces that each foot is putting on the platform. I had to come up with a model. And we came up with a logistic regression. By the way, you can do a logistic regression, lameness, and NIRCHAL. You will find the papers on this one. We have even a patent on this one. So I actually went to the farm. I wanted to know how the data is collected. And I spent, we went to many of the meetings were held in the farm. I went talked to the farmer, dairy farmer, and so on, just chatting away. and to get more first-hand knowledge about how the data is collected and what are things that affect it and so on. All those things become part of my domain knowledge. But I am not a veterinarian, right? I don't think that I enjoy being in the farm. It was not very pleasant experience at all. It's very smelly to be. So that's what I'm saying. So don't worry about getting the domain knowledge and then become a data scientist. On the other hand, if there is a domain knowledge that is very you're very passionate about, psychology or being a veterinarian, medicine, etc., even though you want to be a data scientist, don't worry about it. Go follow your passion. Eventually, you will pick up the data skills you need, and you will become an excellent data scientist for that subject. You will not become a generalized data scientist like I could be called, right? Mm-hmm. But you will be a doctor who is a data scientist for medical applications. That is also a pathway. That's also a career pathway. You can do it either way. You can become a doctor and then pick up all the data science skills, or become a data scientist and work with the medical science to help solve the medical science problems. Either way.
Thank you, sir.
So I'll see you in a data science the statistics conference, right? Apply to ISI.
I'm sure. Okay. So one last question, Dr. Nagaraj, from my side. We talk about mathematical thinking, scientific thinking, how to build scientific temperament, and so on. Is there something like a statistical thinking? And if there is something like that, what kind of skill sets that we as teachers should be looking at to build in students? And as a student, what should the student be thinking that, okay, what kind of skill sets should I have so that I can be good in analysis, looking at data, coming up with inferences, doing some analysis? What kind of skill sets can I build? I'm not asking about what subjects, what areas of statistics I should learn as a student, but what kind of skill sets should I have so that I can do a good analysis? You can share something on that. Maybe you can bullet 1, 2, 3, and so on.
Okay, so can you ask that question again? Because meanwhile I'll formulate. I think I got approximately what is.
Right.
Repeat the question so I can think about my answer.
Right. So many a times we say that, okay, there is something like mathematical thinking, which is generally developed through problem solving. You look at a problem, then you try to think what kind of way in which you can attack the problem, and so on. When we talk about scientific temperament, we talk about, okay, you come up with a kind of hypothesis, and then we can test it, and so on. So if somebody has to be is there something like a statistical thinking, and is there a way in which we can develop that a particular skill set or a set of faculties in us as a student, or maybe as teachers we can think, okay, this is something that we need to develop in students, because the as you rightly said, data science, it's going to be there everywhere. It has already started. So when the students who are in school right now, by the time they would be the workforce, they would need some kind of skills which we may or may not be imparting in school. So what is it that we should do as teachers to develop that kind of skill set which will help them do analysis and things like that?
Okay. So I am actually writing one name of a book in the chat this window. Okay, there's a book called Statistics and Truth by C.R. Rao. I strongly recommend reading this book, as an answer to this question. And I will say a few things, but I think that book has a lot. It's actually a book written by Professor Rao. And he has given talks, and it's a collection of talks, and it's for popular. It's for anybody. This does not really have any prerequisite at all. And it talks about a lot of things that statisticians tend to run into in real life, and the kind of things that you need to do. And when you look at this, you end up thinking that, it's a lot of common sense. This is what it turns out. And so statistics is an interesting combination of, mathematical reasoning that you're talking about, because at the end of the day, that is all. Every theorem in statistics is proved in mathematics only. It's a math theorem in math only, right? So for a long time, statistics was a sub-subject or subfield of mathematics. Okay, and so so it is math only. So you need to have all that skills, that reasoning should be able to do. You need to have analysis skills and so on. But in addition to that, I think the one thing that will actually help a statistician is that ability to connect real processes to abstract structure, right? Because at the end of the day, a random variable is a mathematical construct. It's a measurable function, right? That's what it is, random variable. However, in practice, I have things like random phenomena, like throwing a die, tossing a coin, amount of rainfall, etc., etc. So when I see that process, I should be able to connect it back to a probabilistic model or probabilistic structure and so on. This is a skill you can develop by doing the kind of Poisson problem I told you that it was presented to me in my PUC second year. Doing a lot of such problems, you can develop this skill. And you can reading a lot of material, applications oriented papers, you can develop that skill. There are some, interesting problems are there. And I think that, for example, let us say that you have a registry which is registering the say accidents happening in a particular city. So whenever there is an accident, that accident is reported to the hospital or a police station or whatever, and the report is made, right? So on a particular day, there could be 0 accidents, 1 accident, 2 accidents, so on, right? So now I say, okay, what kind of a model I can use to use to model this? That is, then I look at all the, then I develop that skill. Now, but sometimes you can actually have a very interesting problem. For example, there is a very, very famous problem that how many words did Shakespeare know? This is a very famous problem, famous statistical paper which has gotten cited many, many times. How many words did Shakespeare know? Now, of course, you can look at all the work he has written and count the new words that, the number of distinct words, and that will give you that number. However, remember the question is how many words did he know? So how about the words that he knew but didn't write? Of course, that you cannot count, right? Now, all of a sudden, it's a new problem. So I know if I just am looking at counting like 0, 1, 2, 3, I can count that. But I cannot really, if there are zeros are not reported at all, because, this is the number of words he knew with frequency 0, right? So words used once, words used twice, words used 3 times, and so on. I have that information, but I don't have any information about how many words did he know, but he didn't write. So now I have a new problem, right? And in fact, I think in the Indian context, I like to think instead of Shakespeare, how many words did Adi Shankara know? How many people know about Adi Shankara? Written many, many more work of art, literature than Shakespeare did, by the way. And many, many, many more. And Samskrita provides a very much harder challenge for this counting problem than English, because in English it's a little bit different because of the sandhi is not there. In Sanskrit, there is sandhis are there, new words are formed. So if I know word A and word B, A plus B is a new word. If I know A and B, should I assume that I know A plus B or not? Problems like that. So it is a linguistic problem. This is a very, very challenging problem. So how do I do that? Like that. So thinking about problems like that is what it is learn to learn kind of a thing only, right? Practice.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that is all it.
Thank you so much, Nagaraj for
So
all
one
these.
question, Vinay, there was one question
Uh-huh.
about other than CMI, what other places are there for undergraduate research?
Mhm.
You know, of course, ISIs are there. There are ISIs are there, and IISCs are also very quantitatively oriented. Many IITs these days have statistics departments at the master's level. So if you go to the undergraduate programs in IITs, you will have exposure to them. There are other places like WITS and so on. Now, what I would say, I'll give you a general direction. If you want to do an undergraduate program in any university or any institute in India, don't do it unless you go and visit there yourself in person. Okay? It is a very small investment to make. It may cost some money, time, etc. You'll have to drag your parents and all those downside is there, but it is worth it. Go there and meet and ask this question to them face to face. Do I have opportunity to do research as an undergraduate here? For example, CVV, we do. We encourage undergraduate dissertations. We encourage undergraduate internships. We have 100% internship participation record so far. Everyone who wants to participate has been able to find an internship, and everyone who graduated the final year who has done at least one internship, some of them more than one. So these are the kind of questions you need to ask specifically to the university where you want to go. But all the top institutions, you know, they have this opportunity. But I will not go with the label. So IIT X, don't assume. Go there, call them up and check and say, I am interested in it. Do you have this opportunity? So be proactive in your choices.
Sure, Nagaraj. And I'm sure, you know, it goes without saying that your invitation is open for students to visit CVV.
Yes.
So
Virtually also, we have been giving virtual tours also. So if you're interested, just go to our website and write to the admissions email ID, admissions@cvv.ac.in. That goes to the place and say, I want a virtual tour that can be arranged.
Okay, that's excellent. Okay, thank you so much, Nagaraj. Sorry, we overshot time. Thank you for taking those extra questions and sharing your ideas and your experience with all the participants. I think this is very valuable, especially, you know, from somebody who is coming from a background like yours with 30 plus years of experience in statistics. And you also shared what all students can do alongside what they are doing. So this was really valuable. And personally, I know how much you are tied up with time and how you are on, you know, meetings one after the other and other things that you handle in the university. And despite that, you took off time for all of us. I'm really thankful on behalf of all the participants and Raising a Mathematician Foundation for spending your valuable time with us. And we couldn't have thought of a better choice, especially for this month's expert talk, this month being the 100th birth year of the statistician C.R. Rao. So we are very happy that we got you for this, and we thank you for your valuable advice. If there are any questions that anybody wanted to ask but couldn't, you can just email it to us and we'll try to share it with Nagaraj. And when it's possible, he'll respond and then we can share it with you. Okay. On that, we'll take a close. Thank you so much, Nagaraj. Thank you so much for.
Thank you for all the good work you're doing, Vinay. Good luck to you. And good luck to everybody.
Thank you so much.